It was 9:47 on a Thursday morning, and I was standing in the back of the all-hands meeting with a coffee going cold in my hand when I heard my own project get announced as someone else's idea. "I want to personally recognize the work Derek's done on the Meridian account restructuring," said our VP, Carol, from the front of the room. This kind of strategic thinking is exactly why this quarter came in ahead of projection. Derek stood up, straightened his blazer. Did this little modest laugh, like he hadn't expected the applause, even though I could tell from his face he absolutely had. I'd built that restructuring model. Every spreadsheet, every client call, every 11 p.m. revision. Derek's contribution had been sitting in on one meeting and saying, "Yeah, I think that's the way to go." I clapped anyway. Everyone claps in that room. You clap because if you don't, you become the story instead of him. But something in my chest went very still, and very cold, in a way it hadn't before. I'd let smaller things slide for 2 years at that company. This wasn't smaller. This was my actual work, standing at a podium, wearing someone else's name. Before we go further, if stories like this hit close to home, hit subscribe now, because it's about to get a lot more satisfying. And tell me in the comments, has a coworker ever taken credit for something that was entirely yours? I sat back down at my desk that morning and didn't say a word to anyone. But I opened my laptop and I started looking through my sent folder. Just to check something. I want to back up though, because you need to understand exactly how much I'd already given this company before you'll understand exactly how much I was about to take back. My name's Melissa. I was 31, an analyst at a mid-size logistics firm, 3 years into a job I was genuinely good at. Not flashy good, quiet good. The kind of good where things simply worked, deadlines simply got hit, and nobody upstairs ever had to think about why. That's the trap of being reliable. Nobody thanks the floor for holding up the building. Derek was hired 8 months before this all happened, one level above me, technically my manager, though in practice I ran circles around him on every account we shared. He had a warm handshake, a gym body, and an instinct for being in the room exactly when credit was being handed out. He was not, in any measurable sense, good at the job. He was extremely good at appearing to be good at the job in front of people who mattered. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself the work would speak for itself eventually. It never got the chance to. Every project I touched somehow ended up narrated back to leadership in Derek's voice. A pricing model I built from scratch for our biggest client became Derek's pricing strategy in a client-facing deck. A supply chain fix that saved the company $200,000 a quarter got mentioned in the quarterly newsletter with his headshot next to it. I brought it up once, carefully, over coffee with him. "Hey, just so you know for next time, that pricing model was mine, start to finish. Might be good to mention that when you're presenting it." He smiled at me the way you smile at a child who said something slightly embarrassing. "Totally hear you. I mean, we're a team, right? It's all going toward the same goal." The same goal. His promotion, apparently. I let it go. I told myself I was being petty. I told myself good work gets noticed eventually, by someone, somewhere, and I just needed to be patient. I was wrong. And Thursday morning, standing at the back of that meeting, clapping for my own idea, I finally understood exactly how wrong. That night, I didn't go home right away. I sat at my desk long after everyone else had left, the office quiet except for the hum of the vending machine down the hall, and I opened my email archive. Not to complain, not yet, just to look. I typed Derek's name into the search bar and started scrolling backward through 8 months of history. There it was, an email from me to Derek, dated 6 months earlier. "Here's the full restructuring model for Meridian. Walkthrough attached. Happy to present it whenever works." His reply 11 minutes later. "Perfect. I'll take it from here." Another one. Me, to Derek and Carol both, 4 months back. Attached is the supply chain analysis showing the $200K quarterly savings opportunity. Derek's reply to Carol only, an hour later, CCing me almost as an afterthought. "Found something interesting in the numbers, thinking this could be a big win for us this quarter." Found something. Like it had been sitting there waiting to be discovered, instead of built. I kept scrolling, project after project. Each time the pattern was identical. I did the work and sent it to him in writing, and within an hour, He'd repackaged it in his own words and sent it up the chain, cutting me quietly out of the sentence. It wasn't sloppy. It wasn't an accident that happened once. It was a system, a very deliberate, very practiced system, refined over 8 months until it ran like clockwork. My hands were shaking a little by the time I closed the laptop. Not from fear, from something closer to recognition, the specific, cold clarity of finally seeing a shape you'd been too close to see before. I thought about all those hear you totally conversations, all those little modest laughs at the podium, all that time I'd spent telling myself I was being paranoid. I wasn't paranoid. I had the emails. I'd had them the whole time. I'd just never bothered to put them next to each other before. That night, sitting alone in an empty office, I made a decision. I wasn't going to complain about it in a hallway conversation that would evaporate into nothing. I was going to build something Derek couldn't smile his way out of. I started small. A single folder on my desktop, named something boring enough that no one would ever think to ask about it. Q3 reference docs. Every email where I'd sent Derek finished work, time-stamped, every reply where he'd repackaged it and sent it upward without me, every meeting invite where I'd been quietly left off a call discussing my project. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. The dates did the talking. Within 2 weeks, that folder held 11 separate examples. 11 times, in 8 months, that my work had been laundered through Derek's inbox and come out the other side wearing his name. I told exactly one person, my friend Priya, from a different department, who I trusted enough to test the idea out loud before I did anything with it. "You have receipts going back 8 months," she said, flipping through the printouts at lunch, "and he has literally nothing except charm. Melissa, this isn't even a fight. This is just you deciding when to end it." That word, when, stuck with me. Not if, when. I didn't want to blow up a meeting with a folder full of screenshots like some kind of courtroom drama. I wanted something cleaner, something that would let the truth surface on its own, in a way leadership couldn't wave off as office drama or sour grapes. So I waited, not out of fear, out of patience. I was going to let Derek's own habit be the thing that finally exposed him. The opportunity came 3 weeks later, during the quarterly strategy review, the biggest meeting of the year, the one where department heads present results directly to the executive team and, eventually, decide who gets considered for the promotions opening up in Q1. Derek was scheduled to present the Meridian restructuring as his signature project of the year, the same one I'd built from the ground up, the one that had made Carol call him a strategic thinker in front of the whole company. I didn't sabotage his slides. I didn't need to. I did something much simpler. 2 days before the review, I forwarded the original project thread, the one with my name at the top, my timestamps, my attached model, dated 6 months before Derek ever touched it, to Carol and the 2 other executives in the room, with one clean, calm line. Ahead of Thursday's review, wanted to make sure the full project history was visible for context. Happy to answer any questions on the model. That's it. No accusation, no emotional appeal, just the receipts, laid on the table in front of the exact people who needed to see them, timed precisely so they'd have them fresh in mind walking into that room. Thursday came. Derek stood up in front of the executive team, clicked through his slides, and started explaining his model. Carol raised a hand about 90 seconds in. "Derek, quick clarification. I got an email from Melissa with the original build thread on this. Can you walk us through the 6 months before your first email, and what your specific contribution was during that window?" I watched something shift across his face in real time, that easy, confident charm cracking just slightly at the edges, the exact moment a system that had run perfectly for 8 months hit a wall it had never once had to face. It was very much a collaborative effort," he said, and for the first time in 8 months, his voice didn't sound smooth. It sounded like someone reaching for footing that wasn't there anymore. Carol looked down at her tablet, then back up. "The thread I have shows a fully built model from Melissa in April, and your first message in the chain in June. I just want to make sure I understand the timeline correctly before we move forward." I said nothing. I didn't have to. The silence in that room did more work than any confrontation I could have staged. Derek finished the presentation. Badly. The rest of the meeting had a different energy than it started with, the kind of quiet, careful energy a room gets when everyone's silently recalculating something. I didn't gloat. I didn't send a single follow-up email that day. I let the facts sit exactly where I'd placed them and went back to my desk like it was any other Thursday. The backlash came fast, the way it always does when someone's story stops being the only version in the room. Derek cornered me by the break room that afternoon. That was a pretty aggressive move, sending that thread right before my presentation. It was factual, I said. Everything in it was true. If that's aggressive, I think that says more about what the truth does to you than it does about me. He didn't have an answer for that. He walked away instead. A group of coworkers who'd clearly heard some version of the story started treating me differently, some warmer, clearly having quietly suspected this for a while, and relieved someone finally said something, a couple colder, the kind of people who preferred things stay comfortable, even when comfortable meant untrue. I didn't need either group's approval. I'd stopped needing approval the night I sat alone in that office and finally let myself see the pattern for what it was. 2 weeks later, Carol called me into her office. I sat down expecting almost anything: a warning about workplace conduct, a lecture about going around the chain of command, maybe even a quiet request to let it go for the sake of team harmony. Instead, she slid a folder across the desk to me. I went back through the last year of project attributions with HR. This wasn't isolated to Meridian. I didn't say anything. I let her keep going. I should have caught this sooner, she said. That's on me, not just him. But I want to make it right going forward. And I want your read on the restructuring role that's opening up in Q1, if you're interested. The role Derek had been positioning himself for since the day he was hired. I'm interested, I said. My voice came out steady, calm, nothing like the shaking hands I'd had the night I first opened that folder. But I want it because of the work, not because of what happened to him. It's yours because of the work, Carol said. What happened to him is a separate conversation, and it's already happening. Derek was moved off the account within the month. I don't know the full details of what happened to him after that, and honestly, I stopped needing to know. That part of the story was never really about him. It was about what I'd let myself accept for 8 months before I finally stopped. I got the promotion in Q1, not as revenge, as correction, the acknowledgement that should have existed all along, if anyone had simply been paying attention to timestamps instead of charm. But here's the part I actually want you to take with you. More than the promotion, more than the meeting, more than the look on Derek's face when the silence in that room finally worked against him instead of for him. I spent 8 months waiting for the truth to become obvious on its own. It never did. Truth doesn't announce itself in rooms where confidence is louder than evidence. You have to be the one who puts it in writing, puts it in order, and puts it in front of the people who can actually act on it. I didn't win that meeting because I was angrier than Derek. I won it because I was more organized than he ever needed to be, in a system that had never once made him prove anything. If you're sitting in a meeting right now, watching someone else get applause for something you built, I'm not telling you to blow up a presentation. I'm telling you to open your sent folder tonight. Just look. You already have more proof than you think you do. You just haven't put it next to itself yet. Has this happened to you? Tell me exactly what they said when they took the credit. I read every single comment, and I promise, you're not the only one who sat in that meeting clapping for your own idea. If this story hit home, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from, and next week's story might be the one that's actually yours.